ज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानञ्जना शलाकया चक्षुर्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः. Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaye Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha. Yam Pravajantam Anupeta Apeta Krityam Rapayano Varahakatara Ajuhava Putreti Tanmaitaya Tadavo Binedus Tam Sarvabhutam Hridayam Munimanatosmi Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Abhaktya Vihina Parada Lakshai Kiptascha Kamari Tarangamadye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapanna Vrinde Namaste Charanarvindam Tave Vasmi Najivami Tvayavina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayanam Charanandike Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So, we're going to begin by offering our most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of our beloved Gurus, unto Sri Guru Pada Padma Nityalita Bhavishta Om Vishnu Pada Stotar Sat Sri Srimad Abhaya Charanarvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada, and unto Sri Guru Pada Padma Nityalita Bhavishta Om Vishnu Pada Stotar Sat Sri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayana Goswami Maharaj, under our exalted Rupanuga Guru Varga, all assembled Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. Okay, so we're going to continue hearing the preface to the Sri Damodarastakam, an article written by Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Goswami Maharaj, the godbrother and sannyas guru of our Srila Prabhupada, and spiritual master of Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Goswami Maharaj. This was done in 1954. And we read the first half of it yesterday. And we left off with him bringing up the idea of, he was introducing the difference between the conceptions of the Transcendentalists and the Prakriti Sahajas in understanding the mellows of love between Krishna and his devotees, right? And he was then explaining, he just introduced something from the Brihad Bhagavatamrita of Sri Sanatana Goswami, how the devotee is tasting and experiencing everything with transcendental senses, transcendentally purified senses. Which is very different from the prakrita, the material senses and experience of materialists. Yeah. So, the prakriti sahajas think that Krishna can be perceived and experienced through this material body. And Sanatana Goswami, he says, refutes this in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita. And this will come up later also in this Damodarastakam. But now we have this heading, Seeing Bhagavan Within the Mind and Seeing Him Directly. In this regard, it is essential to carefully deliberate on the commentaries of Srila Sanatana Goswami on verse 4 and verse 6 of this book. Remember, when we read these different verses, we're going to hear first the commentary of Sanatana Goswami. He did this long ago. He considered it so important because he also did a commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam and of course wrote the extraordinary Brihad Bhagavatamrita. And so From the concepts presented in those two verses, the Prakrita Sahajas may infer that Srila Sanatana Goswami Pad explained that seeing Bhagavan with one's eyes is superior to seeing him within the mind during meditation. That Goswami Pad has established Gopakumar's direct perception of Bhagavan with his eyes as superior to Brahma's vision of Bhagavan through meditation must be carefully considered. Because there was an argument. And in one section he was having a discussion with Pipalayana Rishi, and Pipalayana Rishi was advocating the superiority of internal meditation and seeing Bhagavan with the mind. The mind is also a material sense. It's the focus and the chief of all the senses. And so he was saying that in the mind, you can see the complete form of the Lord, whereas with these material eyes, anything you look at, you can only see a part of. Like if you look at anybody, you can't see them whole. You'll see their face, their knees, hands, whatever. You can't see the whole body. You can't see all of anything. You have to focus on something specific. Whereas in their meditation, they were able to perceive the Paramatma in complete form. So he's saying this is superior. But Gopakumar was advocating with seeing with his own eyes, but he was referring to materially purified eyes, spiritual vision. And the spiritual senses are superior even to the mind. The mind is still material. So whatever you can do with any one sense, you can do with all of them. And so certainly with the spiritual vision, you could see all of the Lord at one time. But even that is not the highest vision. There's a discussion where one of the associates of Chandravali is glorifying her, saying that, when she looks at her beloved, her Prananath, Govinda, she can see all of his form at once. And the response is that, my Swamini, she sees one part of Krishna, his eyes, his smiling lips or face, or his beautiful lotus feet, and she becomes fixed on that and can't remove her eyes from anything else. So you're capable of seeing everything, but the beauty of Krishna is so extraordinary, each and every feature will captivate the spiritual senses as well. So Goswami Pad has established Gopakumar's direct perception of Bhagavan with his eyes as superior to Brahma's vision of Bhagavan through meditation, and this has to be carefully considered. In this example, Goswami Pad is not referring to Gopakumar seeing Bhagavan with material eyes. Only after Gopakumar was situated within the realm of Vaikuntha, the transcendental platform, is it described that he saw Bhagavan with his eyes. He was desiring to see him with his eyes directly before him while he was on the higher planets, going through his different stages of development and purification, right? But it was only when he was given his complete transcendental form, when he went to Vaikuntha, that he could see him with those kind of eyes. So only after Gopakumar was situated within the realm of Vaikuntha, the transcendental platform, is it described that he saw Bhagavan with his eyes. In the realm of Vaikuntha, the material senses do not exist. Therefore, the Gopas and Gopis' direct proximity with Sri Bhagavan is in every respect transcendental and beyond the grasp of the material senses. This matter cannot be perceived by the senses of the Prakrita Sahajas, right? Those who are trying to enjoy and taste materially, Prakrita. I have already mentioned that Sri Damodarastakam is to be sung and discussed daily while observing Urja Vrat, also known as Kartik Vrat or Damodar Vrat. Those who wish to please Sri Damodar in the month of Damodar should certainly read Sri Damodarastakam daily and in its entirety. This is the specific injunction of Sri Hari Bhakti Vilas. Various ways of observing Damodar Vrat are found in the scriptures. Urja Vrat comes within Chaturmasya Vrat. It begins from Ekadashi Dvadasi, or Purnim, and ends on those very days 1 month later. We begin it with the Purnim. In fact, if you saw the moon this morning, it looked like Purnima. I think it may be even more full tomorrow. Huh? Yeah. Yeah. However, if these days are Vidha, that is mixed penetrated, they should never be counted. Srila Sanatana Goswami Pad states, in vrats observed by Vaishnavas, Vidha titis should be strictly rejected. Therefore, even the days on which the Chaturmasya and Urja vrats begin or end should be observed, discarding the Vidha titis. The opinion of Sri Hari Bhakti Vilas is that if Surya, the sun, rises and penetrates the beginning or final titis of the Chaturmasya vrat and Urja vrat, then they should not be counted. We do that on Ekadashi sometimes, right? Where it goes into the next day when we actually observe it. In the following passages, we are quoting a short article by Srila Thakur Bhaktivinoda regarding Kartik Vrat. This article clearly determines the day on which the duties involved in completing the Vrat should be performed. The injunction given for those who begin their Vrat on the day of Ekadashi also applies to those who start on Dvadasi or Purnima. The article is as follows, and here's Bhaktivinoda Thakur. To observe Kartik Vrat is a primary duty of a Vaishnava, and he quotes Hari Bhakti Vilas, where it says, Kartik Vrat begins from the Ekadashi that comes within the bright fortnight of the month of Ashvina, September-October, and should be observed with great self-restraint and discipline. That's a good thing. We try to minimize our bodily needs and maximize our practices, our sadhana. According to this statement, he was quoting Hari Bhakti Vilas there. According to this statement, now Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, every year, from the Ekadasi that follows Vijay Dashami, one should begin one's Vrat and end it on the day of Uttana Ekadashi. The Vrat observed during this particular month is called Niyam Seva. The rules of Niyam Seva are as follows. Now, so again, remember, he's saying on Ekadashi, but we're following from Purnima, which is also good, but the same rules. On every day of that month, during the last period of the night, one should purify oneself and perform the Mangalartik of Sri Krishna, right? Shanta, Leela time. So everybody should come to Mangalartik every day during that month, right? Later on in the morning, after bathing, one should perform Archan of Sri Damodar. Okay. At night, one should offer burning wicks of ghee or sesame oil in Bhagavan's temple at the base of Tulsi and towards the sky. In the month of Kartik, one should eat food that is strictly vegetarian and offer to Bhagavan, just see his audience, right, that he's speaking to. Bhaktivinoda Thakur. In Bengal at that time, even Vaishnavas were eating so many different things. Not cows, but they would eat fish and eggs and things. Goats on special days. One should not take stale rice or grains. Okay. That means don't cook too much, right? Okay. Sleep on another's bed. Take oil or honey, or use bell metal utensils. I've never understood all of these, like a lot of devotees in the mat, they would have these, brass plates that they would eat off of. Stainless steel now, but then they would put them aside and not use them during that time. After honoring Bhagavan's remnants, one should hear or study Srimad Bhagavatam and other scriptures in the association of Vaishnavas. One should incessantly perform Nam Kirtan of Sri Hari and remember him. Following these rules, one should pass the entire month. So what we're going to do is, as I've thought about this, is we're going to listen to the Zoom classes every morning. They'll start at 7:30, and there'll be two of them. They'll go almost to 9:30. But we'll be hearing the entire parikram of that day, right? And then in the evening, we'll do the continue hearing Damodarastakam every day. So then on the day of Uttana Ekadashi, one should fast, even from water, and spend the night awake, absorbed in hearing and chanting topics about Sri Krishna. The next day, in the morning, one should purify oneself and then perform Hari Kirtan. Afterwards, one should distribute the Lord's prasad among one-pointed intimate Vaishnavas, and finally honor some oneself. That day, at the end of the night, one will end the vrat. I remember being in Vrindavan one year, and before the Ekadashi, or was it that morning? I can't remember. But Srila Narayan Maharaj, we're all in the midst of parikram, going out early in the morning, all day. It was very exhausting. Morning program all day, then coming back, evening program, and many of us had other duties as well. So we were like completely busy from, can't see to can't see, from dark to dark. And then he said, on this day, on this Ekadashi, we're all going to do Nirjal. And I thought, oh my God, how can I possibly do Nirjal? And I was looking at my godbrothers, and we're all kind of, oh man, how is this going to be possible? But, if Guru says, you've got to do it. And we were so fried and just, okay, got to somehow surrender to this. Hope I don't faint or die. The last time I'd done Nirjal on an Ekadashi, maybe it was some months earlier that year or the year before, it was a very hot day, and done the parikram and got, what's that called when you get overheated and, what? Heat stroke. Heat stroke. I got heat stroke. And I was all alone in some distant room, and my whole body cramped up, and I almost died. I had everything going on, water coming out of every hole in my body, becoming increasingly dehydrated. Couldn't even take water without losing it, and, or anything. And couldn't even move. And I thought, oh my God, oh well, good time to die. That's going to happen. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that's the way. And for advanced Vaishnavas, self-controlled and very disciplined, they can do that. They can do that. To please Sri Radha Damodar is the primary purpose of observing Urja Vrat. That's the primary purpose. So I keep that in mind. Whatever austerities we're doing, it's meant to show I am dedicating myself strictly, exclusively, to absorption in hearing, chanting, remembering, serving Radha Damodar. That's why we don't do certain things, so we free our time, our body, our senses for seva. Srimati Radharani is addressed as Urjeshwari. Therefore, to please Sri Damodar, Sri Satyavrat Muni added the statement, Namo Radhikayai Tvadiya Priyayai, thereby implying that in observing Sri Damodar Vrat, worship of Sri Radha Damodar is one's exclusive obligation. And we're going to hear that it begins with the pastime of that Damodar, Jashoda Damodar, the Damodar tied to the mortar by Jashoda, but it ends with Namo Radhikayai, Tvadiya Priyayai. I'm offering my dandavats to Supreme Srimati Radhika and those who are dear to her, and she and her most dear Sri Krishna. Among the 64 limbs of Bhakti that are to be followed by the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, we find mention of Urja Dhara, honoring or observing Urja Vrat. One should understand that Urja Dhara refers to following the complete Chaturmasya Vrat. Some say, quote, since there is no mention of observing Chaturmasya Vrat among the 64 limbs of Bhakti, we will only observe Urja Vrat. We will not undergo the trouble of observing the 4 months Vrat. People who try to perform bhajan in this manner, being unacquainted with the profound meanings of the scriptures, indulge in whimsical, undisciplined behavior. This is why you always need guidance of Sri Guru, because the scripture's very vast, and it's not just, and there's so many apparently even confusing and conflicting instructions. So in the Mahabharata, in Bhishma Parva, there's a verse that says that directly and concludes with Mahajano yena kata sapanta. Therefore, in order to understand scriptures appropriately, you have to follow the Mahajanas, right, and what they do. And so Bhaktivinoda Thakur, being one of the great, great Mahajanas, is saying, right, that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed us to observe this Chaturmasya Vrat through his own example, by following it himself while in Sri Rangachetra, Sri Rangam, that's in South India, right? We cannot, that's where he met Venkatabhatta, Prabodhananda Saraswati, and the young Gopal Bhatta. We cannot count those who are unable to follow the teachings that were demonstrated and preached by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Shuddha Vaishnavas. We want to substantiate our above statement with an example. Of the 6 limbs of surrender, Sharanagati, only Atmanivedana, submission of one's very self, is mentioned among the 9 types of bhakti or Navana bhakti. Right, Anukulyasa Sankalpa, Pratikulyasa Varjanam, Rakshasya Vishvasho, Gopradve Vadanam, right? They're not mentioned as limbs of bhakti, but will it then be concluded that the other 5 limbs of Sharanagati are prohibited, are to be excluded from one's sadhana? Since Atmanivedan is topmost among the 6 ways of surrendering, one must understand that simply by its mention, all the other ways of surrender have also been prescribed for the practicing devotee. Right, because how can you offer yourself completely? How could you be said to be doing that if you're not doing only things favorable, rejecting things unfavorable, accepting Krishna as my sole protector, as my sole maintainer, being completely dainya and humble, right? Atmanivedana contains all of those. The 6 limbs of surrender are accepted as only one method of spiritual practice, although one is primary, angi, and the other are its elements, anga. So the anga, the elements, that's the first 5. The angi is Atmanivedan, right? Sri Damodarastakam is eternal, therefore we should study it. Sing it out loud and discuss it, not just during the month of Kartik, but every day throughout Chaturmasya. It is so important that it is worth reading every month, and indeed every day of the year. If this Sri Damodarastakam is glorified in a sublimely pure way, Sri Damodar will become pleased. It is with this intention that with great effort we have compiled this book. In doing so, we are especially indebted to the revered Pandit Sri Yuta Naveen Chandra, Smriti Vyakarana Tirtha Mahodaya. He has given valuable assistance in translating the Digdarshini commentary into Bengali and in the presentation of the synonyms and so forth. In some places, the Digdarshini commentary seemed so incomprehensible that it was almost impossible to unearth its true meaning. So this Pandit was also a great devotee, not just a scholar, because to penetrate and extract the deep meanings of the commentaries requires devotional vision, devotional understanding. He therefore personally underwent great pains to consult Pandits from Navadvip and many other places and discuss these sections with them, thereby ascertaining a perfectly relevant meaning. Right? And that's the way to do it. Right? If you're uncertain about something, you consult many appropriate authorities. We are therefore especially indebted to him. The above-mentioned commentary has been published in several editions of Hari Bhakti Vilas, chapter 16. After comparing the original verses with these commentaries, we have published everything in such a way as to be consistent. In his commentary on this book, Sri Sanatana Goswami Pad has mentioned the concepts presented in his Sri Brihad Bhagavatamrita. We have included those concepts as footnotes. There we have published the original verses of Sri Brihad Bhagavatamrita along with their translations, explicitly conveying their deeper meaning for the reader's easy understanding. Finally, my anguished prayer to the Shuddha Vaishnavas is that they become pleased by reading and discussing this book during Chaturmasya and Urja Vrat. I will then consider my efforts successful. Thus I conclude Sri Bhakti Pragyan Keshav, first day of Kartik, 1954. So the first version presented through the Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti was the translation of Sanatana Goswami's commentary, right? With additions from Sanatana Goswami's Brihad Bhagavatamrita. Then our Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj took that and then added his own commentary for our illumination and understanding, and made it more comprehensible, more accessible for us. So that is the beginning. Then it begins with the verses. We could just sing this, all the 8 verses, and read them. And then tomorrow we'll begin each verse. In the evening, we'll sing and read each verse. So I'm going to stop this lecture here. And then everyone should have a songbook. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Srila Gurudev, all glories to all the assembled Vaishnavas, Vaishnavis. So for the next month, our classes will probably be shorter, like this one, based only on the Damodarastakam. And those who want to hear about the Braj Mandala Parikram can go to the Bhakti Zoom channel, either directly, we have our link in the Discord, or on YouTube. I'm not sure whether they'll be posting it the same day on YouTube or what, but that will be our program.
And you said there's an evening one that they're doing? I only saw the list for the morning program.